Hello and welcome back to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. Today is a special wildcard preview edition. We are going to be previewing the other three games in the NFL playoffs before we take a closer look at the Steelers and Dolphins playoff game on Saturday. Joining me, as always, from Long Island, New York, at his friend's house is Austin Davidson.
Hey, yo.
For the last time, for probably a while, I will be broadcasting in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, before I head back home to Brockport tomorrow. Austin, it's playoff football. Are you excited about it?
I am very excited. Steelers go against the Dolphins. It's favorable. The one thing I'm not excited about is the Raiders-Texans, but besides that, pretty good.
Yeah, so why don't we just get that game out of the way right now. We got the first game Saturday at 4:35. You have the fifth-seeded Oakland Raiders in the AFC playoffs traveling to Houston to play the fourth-seeded Texans at 9-7. This is as close to a toilet bowl as you're going to get, Austin, in the AFC playoffs or playoffs in general. You've got a team that won 9 games, just one game over 500, hosting a playoff game, and you've got a team that is without its top 2 quarterbacks. You want to talk to everyone a little bit about the injury report for both teams this week?
Yeah, sure. On Thursday, safety Nate Allen did not practice. Derek Carr was out. Amari Cooper was limited. Crabtree was limited. Andre Holmes was limited. Carl Joseph was limited. Matt McGloin was limited. Kalichi Asmel was limited. Donald Penn did not participate, and Malcolm Smith was limited. So basically, the Raiders are facing a lot of lost starters this week. As for the Texans, Tom Savage did not participate. Quentin Dempsey was limited, and Jay Proche, correct me if I was wrong on that, was limited.
I don't know for sure, but that sounds correct. The Raiders are quite a mess right now, and it's such a shame for them. They hadn't made the playoffs since 2002. They may have had a winning season, but I might be wrong. I don't think they did. But from 2003 until 2015, they just struggled in so many ways, different head coaches, different quarterbacks, and this was a big year for them where they finally seemed to break the mold and became a relevant team again, and then all of a sudden in Week 16, their season kind of turned on its head as Derek Carr suffered a broken leg, and the first look at his replacement, Matt McGloin, in Week 17 didn't go well. He led the Raiders to only 6 points in a loss to the Denver Broncos, who were out of the playoffs, and subsequently got injured as well. So now, for the first time in NFL history since the merger, a quarterback is going to make his first start in the playoffs. What a day it's going to be for Connor Cook, huh?
It's going to be a rough one. He's starting off on a really pressure-filled situation. It's not going to be easy for him.
Yeah, and to make matters worse, he's going up against what is statistically the number 1 defense in the NFL. But the Raiders obviously don't win 12 games by accident. Do the Raiders have enough talent and depth around them to make up for the loss of Derek Carr this week, Austin?
Do they have the depth to get far? Heck no. Do they have the depth to beat the Texans? Possibly. I think so. After seeing the Raiders injury report, I felt way less strongly about my opinion on how they fare, because originally I was very strong about the Raiders, and then seeing their injury report, I was just like, I didn't realize that everyone good on their team was on the dang injury report. I knew about Donald Penn being injured, but I had no idea about Kalichi Asmeli. Also, seeing their top 2 wide receivers limited in practice on Thursday didn't help either. By the end of me talking, I might switch my opinion, but I'm going to hold my ground and hope for the most of the starters to play for Oakland, as I still believe them to get it done. What do you think? Do they have potential?
Based on what I've seen in the statistics and what I've seen from the Raiders this year, unfortunately for them and unfortunately for their fans, I don't think that they have enough depth to win this game, let alone make a run. I've talked about it several times. Usually in the playoffs, you need a solid defense and a hot quarterback. The Raiders definitely don't have a great defense. Statistically, they're a below-average defense. And when you lose their star quarterback like the Raiders have, in most cases the offense becomes either a shell of itself or just simply can't produce the points like it used to. With a weak quarterback play going against the league's number one defense, I just don't see how the Raiders are going to be able to move the ball consistently and get enough points to win. normally this could be saved by one thing, like I mentioned, a good defense. But as I said earlier, the Raiders are not very good. They finished 26th in total defensive yards allowed, and they were in the 20s for both rushing and passing yards against. So if you can find a way to block Khalil Mack and take his impact away, who else do the Raiders have? I mean, I really like they may have some good offensive players, but without Derek Carr to sort of distribute the ball around, I don't know if they'll be able to score like at all. I think that it's really a big problem for Oakland. I just don't think they can get it done. On the other side of the ball, as bad as the quarterback situation in Houston's been this year with Brock Osweiler and a little bit of Tom Savage, Houston managed to win their division for the fourth time in the last 6 years, and the strength of this team has definitely been the number one ranked defense. Can the underachieving offense led by Brock Osweiler score enough to win in this game, Austin?
Nope. In my opinion, nope. There's just Brock Osweiler's play this season hasn't been great at all. You just watch him and you're just kind of like, how did this man get a $72 million contract? It's just, he doesn't have it in him. I don't see a team led by Brock Osweiler doing it. I mean, if there's anything he could do it against, it's the Raiders, but I can't see them overcoming it. It just, both teams are really not looking good on offense this week. I mean, I guess the Raiders look better, but I can't accept the Texans winning with Brock Osweiler. What do you think?
Well, you're definitely right about Brock Osweiler's play. In fact, his play over the last 4 weeks, which led to his benching, I believe he only threw 1 touchdown in the last 4 games he played going into Week 17. The Texans' offense is just so underwhelming in so many ways. They're near the bottom of the league in nearly every statistical category, whether it's points, total yards, or passing yards. The one thing they kind of do well is run the ball. They're ranked 8th in the NFL in rushing yards, so I'm expecting to see the offensive coordinator of the Texans just game plan to keep the ball out of Brock Osweiler's hands as much as possible. That means we're going to see a lot of Lamar Miller and Alfred Blue, and I think that that's the one thing that the Texans do really well, and that's one thing that the Raiders don't do well is stop the run. So I think that's a huge matchup problem in favor of the Texans, and I think that's going to lead to the Texans having the better day. And I think that advantage plus the whole Connor Cook quarterback advantage, if you really want to say Brock Osweiler is that much better than Connor Cook. I also haven't seen much of Connor Cook, so I really can't make a prediction based on something I haven't seen at all. But I think making your first career start against the number one ranked defense in the playoffs on the road is just a mess. I'm sure Connor Cook wishes he probably could have played his own defense instead. And then on the other side of the ball, I just think the strong rushing attack of Lamar Miller and Alfred Blue being versatile in the passing game as well. I just think it's going to be too much for the Raiders' spotty rush defense to stop consistently enough. I think Connor Cook gets roughed up in this game. I think he takes 5 sacks, throws 3 picks, and I think Lamar Miller racks up 140 tough rushing yards and to boot an extra 35 receiving yards as the Texans eliminate the Raiders in an unspectacular defensive slugfest fashion by a score of 24-10. What about you, Austin? What do you think about this game?
Against all the odds, I have the Raiders winning it 21-20. I've watched the Texans a few times this year, and they've just been simply put bad. It's almost unwatchable. Maybe I'm hoping for the Oakland team when they weren't hurt, but Oakland has been good in many aspects, not just the quarterback, which they lost. They've had the great offensive line. They had the great wide receiver duo. They had the 2 great safeties. And while losing a lot of the starters will drive them down, I think they barely squeeze it out. As both predictions go, Connor Cook is going to throw a single touchdown to Amari Cooper and then 2 interceptions along with that. One interception is going to go to Jadeveon Clowney and another to Jonathan Joseph. Latavius Murray is also going to have a big day. He's going to have 2 touchdowns and 95 scrimmage yards. And finally, Lamar Miller and Alfred Blue are going to combine for 165 yards and 2 touchdowns themselves. That's about it. Now, you have a question that made me sad reading it. You want to go ahead and ask that?
Well, I only ask it because I feel like it's necessary because technically they are going to play a game, and if you want to go by the any given Sunday thing, God, anything can happen. But I had to ask it just because I felt like it's something that you can't just ignore, even if the answer is as obvious as it could ever be. Do either of these teams stand any chance at all? Like, do they have like half a percentile of a chance to beat the Patriots on the road next week?
As Bill Belichick would say, we're on to the next question. Nope. No. Do you have any answer other than no?
Well, I'll give the Texans 0.5% chance of beating the Patriots just because of the number 1 ranked defense and just because of Jadeveon Clowney. I should have mentioned before, I think he's going to get 3 sacks this week. And the only chance I could see the Texans pulling this one out is if he has like 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and the Texans are right on the doorstep. But I mean, I don't see how the Texans or how anyone from this game is going to be able to slow down Tom Brady and the Patriots, and they don't have the offense to get things done against the number 1 scoring defense in football in New England. So I think we're all set with that game. Moving on to the late game on Saturday, you have the 6-seeded Lions at 9-7 traveling to Seattle to play the 12th man in the Seattle Seahawks, the 3 seed at 10-5-1. Looking at the injury report, the Lions are missing linebacker DeAndre Levy. He's got a knee injury that had him limited in practice this week. Tackle Riley Reif was limited with a hip injury. Wide receiver Andre Roberts was limited with a shoulder. And center Travis Swanson is in concussion protocol and was limited. On Seattle's side, you have running back CJ Prosise. How do you say that? Is that Prois? How do you say that name? Prosise? I'm sorry. He didn't practice with the shoulder injury. Defensive tackle Tony McDaniel was a full participant. Actually, the rest of these guys, Tony McDaniel, defensive end Michael Bennett, tight end Jimmy Graham, and cornerback Richard Sherman were all non-injury related, so I'm assuming that's kind of like a Veterans Day off kind of thing. So Seattle's pretty healthy going into this game. The Lions have made the postseason for the 3rd time in the last 5 years. Austin, I know where you stand on this, but I'm asking anyway. Is this Lions team finally legit, or is this the same thing as the teams we saw in 2014-11, teams that had good regular seasons but got bounced in the first round in pretty dominant fashion when it comes to the way they lost?
You know how I feel about the Seahawks. I absolutely despise the Seahawks, and it's bad if I really don't like the other team. I think this Lions team is worse than the 2014-2011 team. I shouldn't say that in a bad way, because I think the 2014 Lions were pretty decent. I had to go back and look at the 2011 Lions seasons, and with some help, I determined that this season was way worse. Based on their win streak this year came against the Vikings, the Jaguars, the Vikings again, and the New Orleans Saints. And at first, against the Vikings were kind of impressive, because I believe at the time the Vikings were 6-1. So I think they suffered their second loss against the Lions. So at first that was impressive, but then the Vikings just fell off. So their win streak came against really bad teams. They lost adding to that, they have lost to every single playoff team they faced, which are the Texans, the Packers twice, the Giants, and the Cowboys. Not to mention they took an added loss to the Titans. Compared to the other years, they did way worse against the better teams. And also, they struggled every game they played, winning 8 of their 9 games in the fourth quarter. If you want to look at that as clutch, okay. I find it's bad that a team can be down in the fourth quarter that many times, and at least some of those wins have to be attributed to pure luck. And I believe the Lions are what a one-and-done team looks like. Do you think the Lions are legit this year?
Well, let me put it this way. The way mounting evidence is stacking up against my case, kind of like the injuries were stacking up for the Raiders in that in the last game we were just talking about. Maybe my opinion's going to change, but I got to stick to my guns here. I definitely do not think the Lions are Super Bowl contenders. No matter how you break it down, they're still not there yet. I don't even think they have enough to make a deep run. However, I think that this time they might finally be able to win their first playoff game since 1992. And like you mentioned, you can look at their 8 comeback wins this season in 2 different ways, or I guess 3 different ways. You can look at it as though they aren't good because they've been down that much, and I know that's how you feel. You can look at it as a good thing because they can come back despite being down, or you can look at it kind of both ways where, yes, it's good that they can come back when they need to, but they also shouldn't be down that often, which I can see why you think that way, but I'd like to think think that great teams don't always play great. They just play well when they need to. And yeah, maybe it's unfair to say that the Lions are a great team because I don't think they are. But I mean, I think that this group has learned how to win and how to play well when they need to. And I think that it's finally that, in addition to the matchup, I think that they'll finally break through this week. I'm going to pump the brakes on anything beyond this week. But moving on to their opponent, which is why I think they'll win. Seattle won 10 games this year, but watching them, I've seen them a few times this year, they look so different from those teams of 2013 and 2014, which went to the Super Bowl and won in 2013. I don't think Seattle can make a deep run this year, just with the injuries they have in the secondary and the poor offensive line play. Do you think they can still make a deep run, Austin?
I can't say I do. They have a chance. I think they have a chance to, but I don't think they will. Russell Wilson thrives in this time of year where he has a lot of experience over the past few years, and if they're able to beat the Lions, they move on to the Falcons, and in this season they beat the Falcons already this year, but only on a bad no call from a ref, and that was one of the last plays of the game. So is it possible? Yes, but I don't think so. I see them beating Detroit and losing the Falcons in the next round. They just aren't the same team without Earl Thomas, and they're a way different team without Marshawn Lynch when they had him in 2013, 2014. They haven't been able to keep their running back healthy, so they haven't been having a constant starter at running back. There's just a lot building up for them. What do you think?
Well, historically, the Seahawks have the key pieces, have great players and coaches in the key places. Obviously, coach, quarterback, and they have a solid defense. I don't think they have enough to make a deep playoff run this year. I know offensively they have the weapons. You got Doug Baldwin, Jimmy Graham, Tyler Lockett. They're all pretty good players. And obviously you have Russell Wilson.
I'm going to pause you really quick.
Yes.
Tyler Lockett's on IR.
That's right. I apologize. I forgot about that. Tyler Lockett is out. That's why I didn't put his name down. I should have known that. Oh, yeah. So being someone who played in the offensive line for pretty much my entire football career, whether it was Pee Wee through high school, I've always believed that good offensive line play can be the key to an offense being able to do anything. And with the Seahawks' poor offensive line, you can just look at the statistics, at least as far as running the ball. The leading rusher on this team is Christine Michael, a guy who isn't even on the team anymore. He had just over 400 yards, and Thomas Rawls, who replaced him, has less than 400 yards and is averaging 3.2 yards per carry. Let's put it this way. Usually it's considered like below average when you have like a 3.8 yards per carry. So when you're averaging 3.2, you're really, that means you're getting hit in the backfield a lot. You're not getting much daylight. And even though Rawls is a good, powerful runner, it's clear that you need some room, you need some help if you're going to be running the ball well, and that's something the Seahawks haven't done well. And you know how big I am on being able to shut down one part of an offense, making them one-dimensional. I think it's a lot easier to stop a team when you can slow down the running game or take away the passing game, make them one-dimensional. I think that normally the Seahawks defense would be able to pick up the offense when they've been struggling like they have this year, but the injury to Earl Thomas and Matthew Stafford's proficiency for throwing the football and how he throws the football a lot, I just think that's a big problem. And Seattle's defense, statistically, it's still a top 10 defense, but it's not like the fearsome unit that we've come to know over the last 3 to 5 years. I think that it could be a problem for them. And that's why, for my bold predictions and final score, I just said it. I think the loss of Earl Thomas is a little too much when coupled with the Seahawks' poor offensive line. I think that Matthew Stafford throws for 325 through the air and connects on 3 touchdowns. I think Thomas Rawls gets a touchdown and gets 80 yards on the ground, but I think he has a critical fumble in the fourth quarter that tips the tide of this game, and the Lions score late and win a close game that finally upsets the perennial contenders in Seattle as the Detroit Lions escape with their first playoff win since 1992 by a score of 21-17. What are your predictions for this game, Austin?
Since I believe Detroit is a fake contender that shouldn't be here in the first place, I kind of thought the Redskins should probably be here over them, but even though the Redskins aren't that great, I think that the Seahawks blow them out 21-6. In the game, Russell Wilson's going to throw 3 touchdowns, 2 to Jimmy Graham and 1 to Doug Baldwin, his playmakers. He's going to throw no interceptions. Along with Jimmy G's 2 touchdowns, he's going to have 100 yards receiving. And my final bold prediction is there's going to be 9 sacks in total in this game. There's going to be 5 for the Lions and 4 for the Seahawks. Seahawks offensive line is putrid. It has to be ranked 30th, 31st, or 32nd. There's no way it's any better than those 3. So they give up a lot of sacks. I just think the Seahawks defense is still decent enough where they could get to Matt Stafford. But I think that's it for that game. So we're going to move on to Sunday's early game. The number 5 Giants are going to take on the number 4 Packers in Lambeau Field.
Hold up a second. The Steelers are actually the early game. That's at 1 o'clock.
Oh, I apologize. I'm forgetting because they're not all on here. I'm dumb.
It's quite all right.
The late game is Giants versus Packers. The number 5 seed versus the number 4 seed. Looking at the injury report, Jarrell Adams, their tight end, was limited on Wednesday and Thursday. Nat Burr, their safety, is in concussion protocol and was limited Wednesday and Thursday. Bobby Hart, their backup guard, was full participation Wednesday and Thursday. Janoris Jenkins has been limited Wednesday and Thursday. That's a big one. Ola Odighizola. He's been limited Wednesday and Thursday. He's their defensive end. Jason Pierre-Paul has actually been ruled out already. He did not participate either Wednesday or Thursday. And Cody Sensabaugh, their cornerback, has been limited Wednesday and Thursday. Flipping to the other side, to the Packers. The Packers have quite the long injury report, so I'm only going to stick with Thursday. Brian Bulaga, their tackle, was limited. Randall Cobb was also limited. Jerome Elliott, T.J. Lang were also limited. Clay Matthews was a full participant. Julius Peppers did not participate on Wednesday to limited on Thursday. Nick Perry did on Thursday. Demarius Randall went from limited to full participation from Wednesday to Thursday, so that's good because they got 3 cornerbacks hurt in their last game. Aaron Ripkowski has been a full participation in practice all week. Quinton Rollins, their cornerback, did not participate. Spriggs Jason, their tackle, was limited on Thursday. And James Starks is ruled out already. He did not participate Wednesday or Thursday. Joe Thomas, their linebacker, was limited on Thursday after not participating on Wednesday. And J.C. Treader was a full participant on both Wednesday and Thursday. So this game is kind of important for both Aaron Rodgers and Eli Manning for their legacies. Which quarterback in this game is this more meaningful for, do you think?
Well, I'm going to say that briefly. Eli Manning has already won 2 Super Bowls and 2 Super Bowl MVPs in his career. He's had a lot of ups and downs and really high peaks and low valleys in his career. But I think he's done enough to sort of cement his legacy that even a loss in this game won't be as impactful or tarnishing on his legacy because of what he's already done. On the other hand, Aaron Rodgers has been considered one of probably the 2 best quarterbacks in the NFL over the past 5 years, probably the face of the NFL. Now approaching his mid-30s, Aaron Rodgers only has 1 Super Bowl. It might be a little unfair to say that he hasn't done enough, but I think the fact of the matter is if you're the face of the NFL, you're the face of a sport, you have to win more than 1 championship. You have to be that dynamic, which, like I said, it might be a little unfair, but that's just the way it is in sports right now. Rodgers and his teams have experienced several heartbreaking losses over the past few years, a couple to the 49ers, and I think a first-round exit could be problematic for the future of the Green Bay Packers because I think changes could be coming at the head coaching position because of the way the fans were jumping on Mike McCarthy earlier in the season. And I think if you change coaches now, it's just a complete reset, and I don't know if you have enough time to get Aaron Rodgers into that new system before he starts to fade away. What about you, Austin?
I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers as well, but I think it's more based on a non-legacy of reason. He said he was going to run the table, and so far he's done so, but he obviously needs to keep winning to keep his word, and I think that's why he should win it, because it was really close for me. I didn't really know who really needed it more. It's kind of close, but in terms of legacy, I don't really have an opinion because Eli Manning has his 2 Super Bowl wins and 2 MVP awards, and while Aaron Rodgers only has 1, he's still got time left to prove himself. So it feels like you can make the case for either really claiming Eli to have less time or Rodgers needing to continue to build up his career resume. I think he could have gone either or, especially since Eli Manning gets a lot of criticism for being bad. I mean, it's not that he doesn't deserve it, but it would help him out to win a third Super Bowl, even if it wasn't totally him.
Yeah, absolutely. I figured it was one where you could go either way, but I wanted to see, like, if you had to pick one, who would it be? And I think we both kind of agreed, even if it was for different reasons. This is probably, I think this is going to be the closest game, or at least most hotly contested game, don't you think, of this weekend?
Yeah, I actually have it. What are your bold predictions and your final score?
Well, it might be a little unfair for me to be as down as I am on the Giants lately, because they won 11 games. You obviously, you're a pretty good team if you can win 11 times and only lose 5. But I can't get that game against the Steelers out of my head when the Giants came to Pittsburgh several weeks ago, and I wasn't impressed at all with the Giants' offense. They couldn't get anything done, and that was at the time when the Steelers were really, their defense had played well the last couple of weeks, but they had played against Scott Tolzien and the Cleveland Browns, so I still wasn't that impressed with them. And I kind of felt like Eli Manning laid an egg that game. So if you couple that with the way Aaron Rodgers has played, like, out of his mind the last 6 games, kind of reminiscent of the way he went on a tear in the postseason like he did in 2010, I just think that this is going to be too much for the Giants to overcome, especially if Janoris Jenkins is going to be out. I think Rodgers throws for at least 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. I think Eli Manning plays well too, but I think it's just not going to be enough. I don't think he can keep up with Rodgers. Throwing a late game-clinching interception into double coverage on Odell Beckham Jr., it's going to be Ha-Ha Clinton-Dix coming across the middle of the field and just sealing the win for the Packers. They score a late touchdown, and the interception sets them up for a field goal that makes it a 10-point game that makes the score seem a little bit, the score differential seem a little bit wider than the actual game was. What about you, Austin?
This just feels like it's going to be a shootout, and I think I changed my opinion from last podcast, but a shootout where the Giants come out victorious. The Packers are down to almost no cornerbacks, even with Demarius Randall coming back to full participation. That doesn't even guarantee that he's playing, but it probably does. But they just lost so much to injuries this year, and it's really hurting them. And it just so happens that one of the Giants' most plentiful positions is wide receiver. I don't think the Packers will be able to keep up with the Giants, and the Giants win 34-31 in a shootout game. Odell Beckham is going to go absolutely nuts, catching 2 touchdowns and ending on 160 yards. Also, Ha-Ha Clinton-Dix is going to have a huge game, though. He's going to get 2 picks on Eli Manning. But Eli Manning is going to have a great game. He's going to throw for 400 yards, because why not? I see him tearing apart a weak Packers secondary that only has Micah Hyde and Ha-Ha Clinton-Dix to look forward to. And I also wrote down there Rodgers is going to throw for 325 yards. That's about it.
Sounds like a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Unfortunately, I'm hoping the Steelers can pull out a win, so I'm not too disappointed in just watching this game. Hopefully we'll have something to look forward to. But let's take a look at the games that whole on the bigger scale. Can you name one player on each team, aside from the Dolphins and Steelers this weekend, one player on each team this weekend to look out for, kind of an X factor on each team, and just a little bit why you chose that player?
Yeah, sure. For me, Oakland is Connor Cook. Connor Cook has everything to prove and nothing to prove at the same time, and it's kind of interesting. We don't have any expectations of him. I was discussing this the other day. Matt McGloin, as soon as I saw him starting, I knew what he was going to be. I knew he was going to be a below-average quarterback at best, and I knew they were going to be bad. Connor Cook, he could be the worst quarterback of all time. He could be the best quarterback of all time. He has nothing on his resume besides the end of the Denver Broncos game. That is it. And it wasn't a lot. It wasn't a lot of time. So I think Connor Cook is an X factor. Who's the X factor for you in Oakland? Well,
for me, it's going to be Latavius Murray. I'm thinking about how the Raiders are going to be starting Connor Cook. They're going to have to run the ball a lot. I just think Latavius Murray is someone that has scored a lot of touchdowns this year, but he hasn't had that big breakout game. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to happen this week, but I think he's got to play well for Oakland to have a chance. I'm going to keep going down the line and just say the rest of mine because I think that'll just work better if we just go right down the line. Houston, I got Lamar. Houston, I got Lamar Miller. There's no one really on this Texans offense that says wow to you. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins does, but when you look at who's throwing him the ball, you really can't count on him too much. It's got to be Lamar Miller, the 8th ranked rushing offense, and it obviously goes through him. He can run the ball well. He can be a good option out of the backfield. I think he's the guy to look out for Houston. Detroit, I got Marvin Jones, someone who was the number 1 receiver early on in the year, kind of faded down the stretch. I know this for sure because he was on my fantasy football team, and when the playoffs rolled around, he wasn't playing like he was in the beginning of the year, and it kind of bothered me. So if he can get back to what he was doing in the beginning of the year, 7 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown, I think having someone like that, the Lions don't really have a clear-cut number 1 receiver. They have a lot of good, decent receivers, but I think him playing well can definitely free up guys like Golden Tate and maybe Eric Ebron over the middle. On the other side of the ball in that game, you have Seattle. I got Thomas Rawls. He played so well last year, replacing Marshawn Lynch for the first time. And when he's at his best, he's a good bruiser, and I really like the way he plays. But if he's not getting any room, I don't think the Seahawks are going to be able to do enough offensively to win. So I think it's going to be on the back of Thomas Rawls and the offensive line to get the job done. Looking at the Giants and Packers game for New York, I have Janoris Jenkins. If he plays, he's one of the better defensive backs that is in the NFC. And I don't know if he'd be able to shut down anybody like Jordy Nelson if he's injured. But I think if he plays well, he might be able to bait Aaron Rodgers once, or he might be able to make a couple big plays while the Packers don't really have anybody. I think he could be the key difference in a secondary where it's kind of a battle of who can make one defensive play. I think he can be that guy. And for Green Bay, it's really kind of hard to pick anybody but Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, it's the cliche pick, but Aaron Rodgers, a quarterback, has been kind of the fuel. He's been everything for the machine that has been the Green Bay Packers over the last month and a half, and I think he's going to continue playing well, and I think they'll be able to pull out another win in the playoffs, and I think it's just I watch him the last few weeks. Like I said, it just reminds me of that 2010 playoff run. I think he's got big things destined for him this week, and I think they'll win. So what about you, Austin? Starting with Houston, who do you have?
I actually went the same route. I went with Lamar Miller because I think Lamar Miller is going to have the best game out of the offense. I wanted to pick someone on defense, but I just couldn't leave it down to one person. So I had to go with Lamar Miller, who I think is going to be most of Houston's offense. I think he's going to be the biggest player there. Going on to Detroit, I picked Matt Stafford. If Matt Stafford plays like early on Matt Stafford and not like the past 3 games Matt Stafford where he's 0-3, the Detroit could put up a good fight, but he's really going to be the X factor. It's really his play that's going to decide if Detroit wins, loses, or even keeps up. On the other side, Seattle, I have Jimmy Graham. As I already predicted, I think he's going to have 2 touchdowns. I think this is a great matchup for him. I just see Jimmy Graham having a big day. For the Giants, OBJ, I think OBJ is going to tear apart whatever cornerback is covering him. It's sad because I don't like OBJ. I think he's a little bit of a diva and stuff. A little bit like Antonio Brown, but Antonio Brown isn't nearly as bad. Just OBJ, you have to give respect where respect is due. And I think he's going to have that 2 touchdown game, like I said, and I think he's just going to ruin whatever cornerback follows him. And Green Bay, I also went with the cliche pick because Aaron Rodgers is going to be the GOAT one day. Maybe not number 1, but he's going to be one of the greatest quarterbacks to play the game. He's just going to do Aaron Rodgers' thing. Can you pick another person on the Packers to do great? It's got to be Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, maybe Jordy Nelson, but like who's throwing him the ball, Yeah. So exactly. I think that's probably the easiest choice. That in Houston with Lamar Miller, it's probably the easiest choice to just go with the quarterback or running back in each specific scenario. Austin, is there anything else you wanted to add before we wrap this up today?
Nope, that should be it.
I, like you, am looking forward to a big time wild card weekend. And we just talked for what? We just talked for almost 35 minutes about three matchups that have nothing to do with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it gives me a little more excitement to looking forward to these games. And I'm going to look forward to watching them tomorrow. I can't believe it's here, Austin. I feel like training camp and the preseason and then the opening week was yesterday almost, and here we are in the postseason. A year ago was that memorable win over the Bengals when they imploded. I can't believe it was that long ago, Austin.
As always, it's like bittersweet. We're reaching a time it's like the most exciting part of football, but we're also reaching the end of football, so it's like we have to wait a long amount of time to start to come back, and then it's just a bunch of months missing it. And unlike you, I'm only a football fan, so I only have one sport to look forward to all year. And it kind of gets me sad when I think about it. It's just like, I try to think about what I do when it's not football season. I'm just like, there's nothing. My life is empty.
You gotta start looking forward to the draft. We'll have to see what we're doing as far as that goes. But I mean, you think about 20 teams are actually already done. There's only 12 teams left that are still going. So it's definitely my favorite time of year as far as sports goes. And I'm looking forward. I'm thinking we'll definitely do something like this again for the rest of the playoffs because it's fun. We get to talk about football, and hopefully the Steelers will be in it as long as they can until the end. And we'll have a more in-depth analysis of the Pittsburgh Steelers and Miami Dolphins wildcard matchup tomorrow. I'll be driving back from Pittsburgh to Brockport tomorrow sometime in the morning, and we'll get the episode done sometime around then. Austin, I'm going to record our predictions and our final score predictions in a different document just so I wanted to keep track of that so we knew how close we were on our predictions. Just because I feel like it's playoffs, I want to know a little bit more about that since we'll be talking more playoffs instead of just Steelers this postseason.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Sounds good to me.
All right, sounds good. If there's anything else you wanted to say quickly, Austin, before we wrap this up?
No, I think I'm good.
All right, well, thank you for joining us today on the Stronger Than Steel podcast, a special playoff edition looking at the wild card games, the three both on Saturday and the late game on Sunday. Like I said, we'll cover the Steelers and Dolphins more in depth tomorrow. If you want to check us out, have any questions, feel free to email the show. Our email is strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to check out our episodes, we always post first on SoundCloud, have a limited selection of episodes there, usually our newest ones there, and then we upload our full library on YouTube later. And we're also on Twitter and Snapchat. We live tweet the games, and our Twitter handle and Facebook handle are at STS Podcast 1. We appreciate any feedback or comments or questions you have to offer. We do this just for fun, but we definitely enjoy feedback, so please check us out. And we hope you all have a wonderful day, and hope you've had a great start to your new year, by the way. I hope it's all been going well. So take care, everybody, and we'll see you again tomorrow.